This is Heliox, where evidence meets empathy. Independent, moderated, timely, deep, gentle, clinical, global, and community conversations about things that matter. Breathe easy, we go deep and lightly surface the big ideas. Sometimes, the things that seem really disruptive, they can actually hide some surprising opportunities.
Uh-huh.
Take the recent U.S. tariffs. You immediately think, trade wars, economic problems. But today, we're diving into a report from Neue Zürcher Zeitung that suggests, well, maybe an unexpected upside, especially for Latin America.
That's a really interesting way to frame it. And it's true. What seems to be happening is it's a classic case of how a policy change here can ripple outwards and create, well, unforeseen chances elsewhere.
Right.
These U.S. tariffs, they definitely caused concern, no doubt, but they also seem to have acted as a bit of a push, nudging Latin American trade in some new directions, potentially good ones.
Okay, so let's unpack this unexpected twist. The report highlights, three main areas where things are really shifting.
That's right.
We're seeing Latin American countries making new trade deals globally, strengthening ties within the region itself, and also, interestingly, shifting farm exports more towards Asia.
Yep, those are the big three.
So our mission for this deep dive is really to get under the skin of these changes, understand what's driving them, and, what it all might mean for Latin America's place in the world economy going forward.
Exactly. It's about looking past the initial noise about friction and seeing the deeper adjustments these policies are triggering.
Okay, so where do we start? Maybe with that initial shock. The report says when the Trump administration brought in those tariffs, most of it, leaving out Nicaragua, Bolivia, Venezuela, they actually got hit with a relatively lower initial tariff hike, like 10% on most things.
Yeah, that part's a bit counterintuitive, isn't it?
It feels like it, yeah.
Especially because you already had those pretty hefty 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum, right? And the whole situation with Mexico, that was separate too. Mexico kept running that big trade surplus with the U.S., both under NAFTA and then the new USMCA deal. After China, Mexico's surplus is usually, one of the biggest.
So why did South America get off, as the report puts it lightly? What was the thinking there?
Well, the fascinating thing, and the report points this out, is that the U.S. actually runs trade surpluses with quite a few of the big South American economies.
Oh, right. They sell more to them.
Exactly. So if the main goal of tariffs is often to cut down your own trade deficit, buying less from others than slapping big tariffs on countries you already sell more to, well, it doesn't directly serve that primary deficit reduction goal.
So it's almost counterproductive from that specific viewpoint.
Kind of, yeah. It's a bit of a strange twist. That existing trade surplus actually acted as a sort of initial shield for them.
That's a really good point. So those surpluses offered some insulation maybe, but the report is quick to say this isn't like a permanent get-out-of-jail-free card, right? U.S. policy could still shift.
Oh, absolutely. That unpredictability is key. Just because the initial hit was softer doesn't mean they're off the hook long term. Things can change fast in trade policy. Making assumptions is risky.
Okay, so even with that slightly gentler start, the tariffs clearly sparked some big reactions in Latin America. The report flags three areas moving fast. Let's dig into the first one. This global scramble for new free trade deals. It sounds like the U.S. move was a wake-up call.
Definitely. I mean, if your biggest trading partner starts changing the rules, it's only natural to start looking around for other options, right? Diversify your markets, reduce your risk. And the report shows South America really stepping up efforts to make new trade agreements all over the world. There's a noticeable pickup in pace.
And the big one everyone talks about is the EU-Mercosur agreement. That's Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, Uruguay.
That's the one.
This deal's been dragging on for years, hasn't it?
Right.
What's suddenly giving it a push now?
Well, it's a mix of things, but the U.S. situation is definitely a catalyst. What's interesting is seeing less pushback within Europe now.
Yep.
Yeah, the report mentioned some pretty senior people, like the head of the French Central Bank, the Austrian economy minister, saying, hey, maybe we should get this done. They see it as strategically important now, diversifying away from potential U.S. issues.
So it's like the U.S. policy is almost accidentally pushing the EU and Mercosur together. Shared interest in stability.
You could certainly see it that way. And there's competition, too. The report notes the EFTA group, Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway, Switzerland, they also want to deal with Mercosur.
Ah, so pressure from multiple angles.
Right, which speeds things up.
And it looks like the EU might even be softening its stance on some tricky issues. Things like deforestation rules, sustainability reporting. That sounds like a big concession.
It is a significant signal, yeah. It suggests the EU is really keen to get this over the line. Being flexible on those points, it removes some major roadblocks, making it easier to find common ground with Mercosur.
Okay, let's move to the second big shift. More economic integration inside Latin America. That's interesting. They're looking inwards as well as outwards.
Yes, and it's a fascinating change in mindset. The report talks about companies that operate across multiple countries, say from Mexico down to Argentina.
Right.
They're starting to think of their operations more as one single integrated unit now, not just separate branches in different countries. It's a move away from how things often worked historically, which was more fragmented.
And the car industry is a good example here. Volkswagen, with plants in Argentina, Brazil, Mexico,
Yeah,
they're rethinking their supply chains across the region.
exactly that.
Huh.
They're looking at how parts and production flow between those plants, trying to make the whole Latin American network work together more efficiently, less like separate silos.
Mm-hmm.
And the report also stresses how Mexico's view is changing. Historically, it was all about North America, right? NAFTA, USMCA.
Overwhelmingly, yeah.
But these U.S. policies are nudging Mexico to build stronger economic ties southwards, too, diversifying their focus within the Americas.
That makes total sense. If your main partner gets less predictable, you naturally explore other avenues, strengthen regional ties.
Precisely. It's smart strategy, hedging your bets, basically.
Okay, and the third big area, agriculture shifting towards Asia. This feels like a huge potential change in global food flows.
It really is. The demand from Asia for South American farm products has just exploded. The report has some striking numbers. Take beef.
Yeah.
Brazil's beef exports to China were tiny maybe 10 years ago. Now it's over 1 million tons a year lately. China's buying something like half of all the beef Brazil exports.
Wow, 1 million tons. That's incredible growth. And it's not just beef.
No, not at all. You see similar things with wheat and cotton. Brazil used to import wheat, mostly. Now, partly because of the disruptions from Ukraine and Russia, Brazil's become a major wheat exporter,
Right.
filling that gap.
Really? Okay.
And cotton, Brazil's now the world's biggest exporter. Huge yield, good quality cotton.
So it's not just about selling more stuff. Latin American farmers are actually adapting, meeting the specific needs of these Asian markets.
Exactly. The report really highlights how quickly they've adjusted meeting consumer tastes in Asia, navigating all the geopolitical shifts. And there's this expectation, maybe hope, that China and other Asian countries will buy even more food from South America, partly because of their tariffs on U.S. farm goods.
Ah, so it's like a domino effect across the Pacific?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
One country's tariffs create openings for others halfway around the world.
Now, this pivot to Asia obviously brings up infrastructure. You need to get the goods from South America over there efficiently. That means connecting the Atlantic and Pacific coasts better, right?
Absolutely. And there's renewed talk and action on projects to do just that. Link the coasts.
Like that big Chinese project in Peru, the port.
Yes, the deepwater port in Chansay.
Yeah.
China's plans for that are really ambitious. They're talking about connecting that port to the whole continent rail, rivers, even a road through the Andes and the rainforest.
Wow, that sounds massive.
It is. If it happens, the report suggests it could really spark a growth spurt for the whole region. Much better connections for Asian trade.
So a potentially much more joined up South America, better placed for Asian markets. But the report does flag a potential downside or maybe a complication. The risk that Asian companies, if they get blocked from the U.S. by tariffs, might just redirect those exports to this growing Latin American market instead.
That's a very real possibility and an important point. As Latin America grows and integrates, it becomes a more tempting market in its own right. So yes, Asian exporters facing U.S. barriers might see Latin America as an alternative destination.
Which could mean more choice for consumers there, but maybe tougher competition for local industry.
Exactly. It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Opportunities and challenges.
So wrapping this all up, it really seems like these U.S. tariff policies, maybe unintentionally, have lit a fire under Latin America's trade strategy, pushing them to connect more, both globally and regionally.
I think that's a fair summary. The three things we talked about, new global trade deals, deeper integration within the region, and that big agricultural shift towards Asia, they all point to Latin America, carving out a perhaps more independent and dynamic role in the global economy. It's a significant reshaping.
Okay, so as we finish this deep dive, it's clear these trade shifts aren't just numbers on a page. They have real geopolitical weight, don't they? These new connections, new dependencies, they could change things quite a bit in the long run.
Absolutely. You're talking about potential shifts in economic power, maybe even altering alliances down the road.
Yeah.
It leads to a really interesting thought for you, the listener, to take away.
Hmm.
How might this more connected, more outward-looking Latin America actually influence the bigger global picture in the years to come? It's definitely something worth thinking about. Thanks for listening today. 4 recurring narratives underlie every episode: boundary dissolution, adaptive complexity, embodied knowledge, and quantum-like uncertainty. These aren't just philosophical musings, but frameworks for understanding our modern world. We hope you continue exploring our other podcasts, responding to the content, and checking out our related articles at helioxpodcast.substack.com.